Will be taking place in the referendum that will decide whether the UK is in or out of the European Union. Tonight, we'll hear from Michael Gove, the Justice Secretary and Leave campaigner.
A short time ago, he arrived here at Sky's London headquarters for his first big public examination of the campaign.
I'm Kay Burley, and I'll be helping our live studio audience put their own questions to Mr Gove.
And I'm Faisal Islam. I'll be interviewing him in depth, examining why he thinks you should vote to leave.
It's all live here on Sky News, on the Sky News mobile app and at skynews.com. Up next, Faisal and Mr Gove.
Mr Gove, you're a man with a dream. Exactly how many independent economic authorities share your dream of Britain outside the EU? Can you name a single one?
Well, if you're talking about some of the independent economic authorities who've already weighed into the debate, they're people who've been wrong in the past. They're organisations, I'm afraid, that didn't predict the global crash in 2008, and they're the same organisations, in many cases, that also said that we should be inside the single currency.
I mean, that was some time ago. Can you name a single one?
My point is that I'm glad that all these organisations are not on my side. I'm glad
that economic experts aren't on your side?
Well, Margaret Thatcher said of economists, the great thing is that economists are fine, but you mustn't inhale. The truth is that I prefer to take the view of business people who are actually generating jobs and creating wealth. The organisations that many people are citing in this debate are organisations that have been wrong in the past, and I think that they are wrong now.
Just to clarify,
in many
but
cases,
not a single independent economic authority, not a single one.
Well, there are...
You must have one.
There are economists and there are business people who do back us. There are 300 business people who put their names to a letter in the Daily Telegraph.
Book agent?
No, I'm talking about the 300 people...
He's on that list.
Well...
they're not the businesses that generate the jobs, apart from the job for Douglas Carswell's book.
Well, putting aside Douglas Carswell's book, which I'm sure is very good, the key thing is that of those 300 business people, you had some real business leaders who have been making a huge difference.
A minority, you would admit?
No, I would say
you don't admit a minority. You've only got a minority of business
I think that if you look at the business community, the genuine wealth creators in this country, organisations like JCB, which manufacture globally, organisations like Next...
We haven't heard from Mr Bamford. He's been a bit shy.
We know that he's in favour of our leaving.
Because Get him out to say hello to us.
We know that if we vote to leave the European Union, then we can take control of our economic destiny. And many of those organisations who've been cited so regularly as being in favour of our being in the European Union are organisations that have consistently made errors, organisations that receive money, in many cases, from the European Union. They're not genuinely independent. They're organisations with an agenda, and an agenda that's often been wrong.
An agenda? OK. Economic authorities, we've had none. Economists, singular, how many you got?
Well, one of the things about economists, as I mentioned earlier, is that...
have you got football teams worth?
No, I'm sure we do.
There's 600 on the Prime Minister's side, on the Remain side. Come on. Give us 11, at least.
When we had the debate on whether or not we should join the single currency, there were a majority of economists then who were in favour of the single currency. So many of the people who are arguing that we should remain in the European Union now are the same people. And the arguments that they're making are that we should cede control of our economy, our trade and our money to unelected and to unaccountable individuals. My view is that we should take back control of our economy, because their argument is that we're better off if there are individuals who don't have our best interests at heart dictating our future. My view is that we would be better off, and the majority of people in Britain, I believe, are on my side in this, we would be better off if we trusted the leaders of this country, accountable to people in this country, to spend money on our priorities like the NHS.
OK, well, so you can't name an economic authority. You're struggling to name more than a handful of economists. Can you name a single one of our international allies, the countries we've gone into battle with, who support you?
Well, one of the things about some of the leaders of foreign countries is that they would never accept.
Can you name a single one?
They would never accept a curtailment of their sovereignty in the way that they are arguing that we should curtail our sovereignty.
Can you name a single one that backs your, it's complicated things. We look for expertise, we look for experts, we look for our allies. They've got our back, they've had our back, we've gone into battle with these people. Give me one.
Well, one of the problems is that...
You can't name one, can you?
Well, one of the things
I'll give you a half for Donald Trump. You're going to count for Donald Trump?
One of the things about Donald Trump, one of the things about all of these people, is they don't have a vote in this referendum. The people in this audience, the people watching at home, have a vote. And my view is, when you hear foreign leaders, when you hear politicians, don't pay attention to what they say, pay attention to what they do. And the truth is that Barack Obama would never accept a court in Mexico decreeing what the law in the United States would be. Barack Obama would never accept politicians in Latin America saying what should happen in the United States of America.
He accepts being part of NAFTA and NATO. But listen, the leaders...
But that's totally different,
the leaders of the US...
From the European Union and surrendering sovereignty in that way.
Let's just look at this now. The leaders of the US, India, China, Australia, every single one of our allies, the Bank of England, the IFS, the IMF, the CBI, 5 former NATO Secretary-Generals, the Chief Exec of the NHS, and most of the leaders of the trade unions in Britain all say that you, Boris and Nigel are wrong. Why should the public trust you over them?
I'm not asking the public to trust me. I'm asking the public to trust themselves. I'm asking the British public to take back control of our destiny from those organisations which are distant, unaccountable, elitist and don't have their own interests at heart.
Elitist.
Absolutely.
Because the Lord High Chancellor, conspiracy of elites. It sounds like something like Wolf Hall.
Well, I haven't seen Wolf Hall, but the one thing that I would say is that the people who are backing the Remain campaign are people who've done very well, thank you, out of the European Union, and the people increasingly, absolutely. The people who are arguing that we should get out are concerned to ensure that the working people of this country at last get a fair deal. I think the people in this country have had enough of experts with organisations from acronyms
the people of this country have had enough of experts.
From organisations with acronyms saying that they know what is best and getting it consistently wrong. Because these people are the same ones who've got consistently wrong.
This is proper Trump politics, this, isn't it?
No, it's actually a faith in the...
Oxbridge Trump.
Well, it's a faith, Faisal, in the British people to make the right decision.
Blind faith?
I don't think it is, because one of the striking things about this debate is that those who are arguing that we should remain have a vested financial interest.
Right. So are they lying, are they stupid, or is there a conspiracy? There's a conspiracy.
No, I'm pointing out that the majority of people in this country are suffering as a result of our membership of the European Union. Their wages are lower.
Yes, the majority of people.
Their wages are lower.
33 million
Access
people
to public services is restricted.
What's your factual basis for that claim that 33 million people are suffering from EU membership?
Well, we can
complain about the other side's figures. What's your factual basis to say the majority of people in this country are suffering from EU membership?
Well, I know myself from my own background. I know that the European Union depresses employment and destroys jobs.
We haven't got a majority.
My father had a fishing business in Aberdeen destroyed by the European Union and the Common Fisheries Policy.
That's one person.
The European Union has hollowed out communities across this country. And it has also contributed to lower salaries for working people, and it has also ensured that young people in this country don't have the opportunities to get the entry-level jobs that we heard about last night. Right. Now, you can say that their concerns don't matter.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't dismiss it.
You were dismissing my father's example.
I did not dismiss it. You claimed that your father's example was
You're on the side, Faisal, of the elites. I'm on the side of the people.
You said a majority... You, the Lord High Chancellor, said a majority of the British public was suffering from the EU. You have no factual evidence for that whatsoever.
Let me give you a fact.
No, you don't have any evidence for it.
Yes, I do.
Well, let's move on.
Because every year we give billions of pounds to the European Union, billions of pounds that we should be spending here. Taxpayers are handing money over to the European Union so that it can be spent on Jean-Claude Juncker's expense account and his private jets, rather than being spent on our NHS and our priorities. David Cameron's got a private jet
as well now, hasn't he? David Cameron's got a plane. It's your government's policies that have directly contributed to some poorer people's loss of income. You've cut their benefits. So why are you not blaming that? You're blaming Europe. All the problems in this country on Europe.
I don't blame all the problems of this country on Europe, but I do believe
people that you can't find a factual basis for, though.
Well, I've already pointed out to you a number of facts which You haven't denied one of them.
Well, let's have a fact. There's been a fact on the side of your bus in 1 metre tall letters, and let me quote, we send £350 million to Brussels every week. Let's fund the NHS instead. Which week was it that we sent £350 million to Brussels? Was it this week? Last week? Was it Christmas week? Easter week? Which week?
Every week we send actually more than £350 million to Brussels.
We send it. So hang on, so it comes out of a bank account in Britain and goes to Brussels. Does it literally leave the country?
Yes, because if you look at the Office of National Statistics report, they point out that we send more than £350 million.
We don't send it there. It doesn't leave the country.
Yes, we do. And then we get some of it back.
Doesn't leave the country.
And we do get some of it back.
You know it doesn't leave the country. And you don't listen to me. UK stats authorities say the figure's misleading. The Treasury Select Committee, containing Brexiteers, says it's deeply problematic. One of your own backbench colleagues, a Conservative MP who's campaigning to leave as a respected doctor, refuses to hand out leaflets because he says you're treating the public as fools.
The fact is that we send more than £360 million to the European Union. We send £20 billion gross a year. We get some money back, but the money that we get back, the rebate, we cannot count on. The rebate is decided at a European level. It's not in the treaties, it's not a guarantee, and as the Chancellor of the Exchequer has pointed out, that rebate can be altered to our disadvantage.
Aaron Banks, successful businessman, poured many hundreds of thousands of pounds into donations into your side, said on social media this week about that number on your bus, it's not smart to lie. It's not smart to lie, is it?
Absolutely not, but I'm telling the truth.
Aaron Banks says you're lying.
Aaron Banks can say what he likes.
Aaron Banks funded UKIP's manifesto, took an assessment of this figure at the general election last year and got it independently audited, and it was half what you say. It was 9 billion, not 19 billion. Would you independently audit your figure? Let the CEBR in. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that?
Well, I'm perfectly happy
Let's get the same people that ordered the UKIP manifesto to audit your number.
I'm perfectly happy to defend the figure because it is a fact.
Should we get the independent auditor in?
It's a real figure. Which is already we've already had.
People will decide for themselves. People will decide themselves that you won't allow an independent audit of your figure that was done to UKIP on your own side.
Well, firstly, I'm not a representative of UKIP. Secondly, I'm happy to have that figure independently audited.
They were on this side.
Thirdly,
you're a Johnny-come-lately compared to UKIP.
And I think the most important point here is we don't have control of that money. There are billions of pounds that we send to the European Union every year, and the Institute for Fiscal Studies has pointed out that if we took that money back, we could spend it on our NHS.
The IFS
we could use it
did
to
not back your number. The IFS said there'd be a 40 billion hole in your bank. You know that. Don't quote the IFS. You're the great defender. You're the great defender of Westminster democracy, but you're willing to repeat this misleading figure. You've imported this Trump campaign to the mother of all parliaments. Post-truth politics. That's what you're doing.
No, because if you look at the every reputable record of how much money we spend to the European Union, it is £20 billion gross, just over half of that in a net sum. So that means that there are billions of pounds, you can't deny it, Faisal, neither can anyone else, that are spent on our behalf by people who are unaccountable, unelected, and whom we can't get rid of. I think we should take back control of that money. I think that money should come back here. And also, I think it is wrong of you to say that people who want our democracy restored and who believe that Britain should be a self-governing nation are people following in the footsteps of Donald Trump. It is that sort of sneering condescension towards people who believe in democracy that discredits those on the Remain side of the campaign.
All I have said is it's the way... It's your attitude to facts. It's your attitude to facts. It looks like, according to one on a leading figure of your own side, you've misrepresented the cost of the EU. So let's look at the actual cost of leaving. What would you say to someone in this audience who works in manufacturing cars, for example, who could lose their job because of your Brexit dreams?
I think that the truth about the European Union is that it is a job-destroying machine. And anyone who's working in manufacturing here should know that they will have increased opportunities if we leave the European Union, because we'll have an opportunity to forge new trade deals with other countries, with China, India and America. More than that, working people in this country have lower wages as a result of our membership of the European Union. You quoted Aaron Banks. Let me quote the leader of the campaign that wants to keep us in, Stuart Rose. He said that wages would rise if we left the European Union. So more jobs, higher wages and a stronger manufacturing base if we choose to leave.
Fundamentally, the risk to jobs won't affect you as Lord High Chancellor, will it? That's the issue. You're willing to take a risk with other people's jobs, but it won't It's not a risk on your job.
If you heard earlier, Faisal, I know what it's like to see someone lose their job as a result of the European Union. I saw my father lose his job. I saw his business go to the wall. I saw 24 people whom he employed.
Well, listen, I've seen my father leave my job. You're not unique. You're not unique in that, Mr. Gove.
No,
but people here will have seen it too. You have no special moral authority because
I'm absolutely not unique.
Does your dream... You want to take an experiment with other people's jobs.
Or seen their friends lose their jobs, lose their income and lose their livelihood as a result of the European Union. Do not skate over their misery. Don't dismiss the pain that they've had. Don't belittle the hurt that has been caused by the job-destroying machine that is the European Union.
You don't have the facts to prove that.
Also, look at the facts of unemployment in southern Europe. Yeah. Youth unemployment in Greece is nearly 50%. In Spain, it's 40%. Yeah. Now, these are facts, and these facts are also a story of human misery. Yes. All those who are arguing that we should stay in the European Union, but there's a direct consequence for us, because those jobless young people in Greece and Spain who are suffering so much as a result of Europe are coming here in order to put pressure on jobs.
We're going to come on to that.
And that means, as we heard last night, that young people in this country face a tougher
We're going to come on to that.
Now, you can't deny any of those facts.
We're going to come on to that. Does your dream come with a guarantee that when the UK leaves the single market, which is your idea, the biggest free trade zone in the world, it won't cost any jobs? Can you guarantee that?
I can't guarantee every person currently in work in their current job will keep their job, but I can say...
Who's going to lose their job?
Well, 73 members of the European Parliament will be losing their job. Our European Commissioner will be losing their job. And as far as I'm concerned, I wish them well in the private sector.
Jamie Dimon in Britain today said Brexit could mean fewer JP Morgan jobs in the UK and more jobs in Europe. Biggest American bank. Why do you know more about Jamie Dimon's job plans than he does?
Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan are contributing millions to the In campaign because they do very nicely, thank you, out of the European Union. Banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs said that Greece could enter the euro, and they knew that that was wrong. Banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs spend millions lobbying the European Union in order to rig a market in their favour.
Did you back blocking the EU trying to limit bonus caps?
I'm not interested in defending... I'm not interested in defending bankers' positions.
Against Europe, trying to have bonus caps. I mean, extraordinary stuff.
No, others did. I did not. Because I'm not interested. I'm not interested in defending the position of those who already have money, power and privilege.
Did you stand up in Cabinet to that decision?
I am interested
in attacking those... to that decision?
I explained to my Cabinet colleagues that we should not be on the side of the undeserving rich. We should be on the side of those who strive...
So you tried to block the EU bonus limitations on JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs.
I've made it clear on every platform that I've been given that we have in the European Union a market rigged in favour of the rich and stacked against the poor.
Well, let's talk about that.
I think that is wrong.
Let's look at the value. Let's look at the value of the pound. That matters to everybody in the United Kingdom. All 33 million you talk about. The Bank of England says it will fall, perhaps sharply, to quote them, if we vote to leave. The Treasury says it will fall by 12 to 15%. City economists say 20%. What is your prediction about how much sterling will fall if we vote to leave as you want?
Well, there was one economics commentator I was listening to last night, you, Faisal, who said that the pound rises, the pound falls, but Britain is a strong country and that it will see its way through. And my own view is...
What I said yesterday was a matter for the Prime Minister. I'm asking you what you think. What you think.
Oh, so were you not telling the truth yesterday?
I was asking the Prime Minister a question, and you're trying to avoid talking about economics.
I am
because you do not have an economic plan. Will you tell me how much do you think sterling is going to fall, or not at all?
Well, Faisal, that's very interesting. You said that yesterday you said something in which you didn't believe, and then you accused me of Donald Trump post-truth politics.
I think
there's an inconsistency there. I thought the argument you made last night was very good. If you don't want to stand by it, then I'm very sorry about that.
I was asking a question. Well, the pound's already fallen. I mean, the truth is, you have this dream, but you've got no credible plan. Despite having years to prepare for this, you still haven't come up with a coherent idea of what comes next in terms of our trade.
Yes, I do. And, in fact, it's perfectly clear what we would do if we voted to leave the European Union.
Perfectly clear.
The day afterwards, we could pass legislation or introduce legislation which would limit the power of the European Court. That would mean that this country was safer because we could keep out criminals and kick out terrorists, and we could also take some of the money back that multinationals refuse to pay because they use European Union law in order to evade the British tax authorities. And then we could move on to have not just a free trade and friendly cooperation arrangement with other European Union countries.
A free trade and friendly cooperation arrangement?
We could also have trade deals. Well,
does that exist? Is that an organisation? Does it have a headquarters? Have you just made it up?
No, because we have a free trade zone at the moment in Europe, which stretches from Iceland to Istanbul.
Is this an organisation? Does it have a website?
No, but...
It doesn't have a website, so it doesn't exist. Well, let's move on. Let's move on.
You don't need to have a website in order to exist. I think that most people in this audience don't have their own personal website. I don't doubt that they exist. The key thing is that there is no reason why any European country would want to erect trade barriers with Britain, particularly when Germany sells more to us than we sell to them.
Yes, well, I know those facts. Your dream,
more facts on our side, yes.
Your dream is built on the idea we'll get world-beating trade deals, 52 of them, in world record time. Every expert, head of every government, including our own, says it's not possible. But you're asking people to risk their jobs on the promise of you, Boris and Nigel. I mean, you must have some super-secret negotiator in your back pocket. Is it Boris, secret weapon? He's certainly got a unique diplomatic style.
Well, Boris is wonderful, but I don't need to...
It seems to insult the leader of the free world on the basis
I thought you wanted to ask me about trade. Let's talk about trade.
No, do you back Boris'
China has a trade deal with Switzerland, and it has a trade deal with Iceland. But it doesn't have a trade deal with the European Union. Iceland has a population smaller than Croydon.
Canada's trade deal took 7 years.
No. But how could Iceland, how could Switzerland get trade deals with China when the European Union can't?
It's the best possible trade deal.
Because the European Union is a big, bureaucratic and unwieldy organisation that cannot forge new trade deals. Individual countries can. But more than that, the Germans aren't going to cut off their nose to spite their face. We heard from people in the audience last night who pointed out that German car manufacturers and washing machine manufacturers are not going to say to Angela Merkel, please make it more difficult for us to sell to Britain. They're absolutely not. And you can't deny that it would be in the self-interest of those countries.
I'm sure
and it's really important when it comes to trade that we should take back control. At the moment, our trade deals are dictated by one individual who's arguing on behalf of 28 countries. I think trade in this country should be shaped by one individual whose interest is British jobs.
Do you have good judgment? Do you have good judgment, Mr. Gove? Do you have good foresight?
I don't know.
Let's remind the audience who described the Iraq War as that rarest of things, a proper British foreign policy success 5 years after the invasion. You're keen to say other people were wrong then and wrong now. People entitled to say the same about you?
Yes, they are. They can point out that I may have called the Iraq War wrong, but I'm very happy to acknowledge my mistake then. It's the invincible arrogance of Europe's elites that gets me. These are people who have seen the euro collapse. These are people who are presiding over a migration crisis on their borders. And yet, do they ever acknowledge that they need to change? No. They say they need more integration, more of our money, more control over this country. I think it's time that we said to people who are incapable of acknowledging that they've ever got anything wrong, I'm sorry, you've had your day. Unelected, unaccountable elites, I'm afraid it's time to say you're fired. We're going to take back control.
Thank you, Lord High Chancellor. For now...
Wow, that was spicy, wasn't it? Thank you, Faisal. Michael Gove faces questions from our live studio audience. Next, stay tuned.
Not good. Where are the cops? Are you kidding me?
度は、
My excessive behaviour caused such pain to my son, and I deeply apologise for the burden caused to the people involved in the search and the school faculty.
Michael Gove has been interviewed by Faisal Islam, and now it's the turn of our studio audience to put their questions to him. So let's go straight in with John Shanker. Hello to you, John. What's your question for Mr. Gove?
Good evening, Mr. Gove. I feel that the Leave campaign is spreading project lies. Yes, project lies with no concrete evidence on what will happen to the economy if we vote to leave. I feel your campaign is more to do with a bunch of politicians wanting to further their own political careers. Tell me, Mr. Gove, why should we trust you?
Well, John, I think that you should trust the case that I'm making rather than any individual politician. This debate is far bigger than the fate of any individual politician. It's about all of us in this room and all of us at home. It's about the sort of country that we want to see. And what I believe in is hope. I believe that last night, I'm afraid what we heard was depressing, and it was an exercise in trying to scare you into not following through what you know in your heart to be right, which is that Britain is a great country, that we can achieve amazing things if only we trust the next generation. And I think that whatever decision we take, leave or remain on June the 23rd, the one thing that's clear to me is that if we in the future have confidence in ourselves, then there is no limit to what we can achieve. And I think that the depressing litany of projections about World War III and global Brexit recession that we hear from the Remain side is not the sort of approach that we should take into the future. Whereas on our side, in the Leave campaign, what we believe in is unlocking the potential of the British people. And I think, John, that there are all sorts of reasons to believe that our country, the fifth largest economy in the world, with the most impressive armed forces, with the best publicly funded health service, with so much to offer, that is Project Hope, and it's what I hope people will vote for on the 23rd.
I don't think so. I still think it is project lies. I still think you're continuing to peddle lies about the 350 million. We all know that it isn't that figure, and it's just a matter of lies.
Yeah, just to clarify that. Yeah, can we just clarify that, Mr. Gove? I mean, as far as this £350 million figure is concerned, that's what's on the side of the battle pass. That's what your team is saying is sent to Brussels every week. Even Mr. Farage, who I spoke to last night, said that he wouldn't use that figure. Is he wrong, or are you?
Well, on this occasion, I'm afraid that Nigel is wrong. The truth is that we give actually more than £350 million to Brussels every week. Now, we do get some of that money back, and it's important, and I was making this point to Faisal earlier, to acknowledge that in a spirit of total transparency. We get some money back through a rebate, and it's also the case that the European Union spends some money in this country on things like farming subsidies and also supporting universities. But the truth is that we cannot count on that rebate. That rebate is decided by other countries. It's not up to us. And one of the problems that we've had in the past is that the rebate has been whittled away. I fear that if we vote to remain, that rebate will only be reduced further. If we leave, however, we can take control of all of that money. We're not reliant on anyone else's generosity for the rebate, and more than that, the money that is currently spent by the European Union, we can spend on our priorities. And that means we can continue to support farmers, continue to support scientists, but we will also have, in addition, an extra £10 billion to spend on our priorities, like the NHS. That's got to be sensible.
Do you therefore agree that the figure of 350 million was wrong and it was actually a lie which you put on the bus and told everyone?
No, I think the figure of 350 million is a fact. But of course, with all facts, you provide broader context and people see. The critical thing, though, is it's control.
Yeah.
That money is controlled by the European Union. And if we vote to leave, we can take back control of that money, and we're no longer in the hands of people who may not always have our best interests at heart.
The gentleman there in the blue shirt with his hand up. Keep your hand up and then we can see, we can get our boom. Yeah?
Yeah, sorry. I've just got an interview with Chris Graney with Laura from the BBC. Said we pay into the EU 10 billion a year. Where's that 350 then, and why is he wrong? And you're right, if he's part of your
This is going to haunt you, this figure, Mr. Gove.
Well,
because he said we pay
OK,
into
we've got it, thanks.
no, I think of course, it's the same thing. It's the difference between the total amount that we hand over and then what we get back. If at the end of you know, any exercise we get some money back, of course that's great. But we cannot rely on that money being given back in the future. So at the moment, we hand over nearly £20 billion and then we get 10 billion back.
17.8 billion, and we don't send it all, is an argument, but we'll have to leave it there for now because we want to bring in Sam Shabir. Hello to you, Sam. What's your question?
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Over there.
Go on, Sam.
So I think it's disappointing to see the Leave campaign use such divisive tactics on the issue of immigration. One of the greatest things in our society is multiculturalism. Do you regret that the Leave campaign has been focusing on the so-called problems with immigration?
Well, Sam, I agree with you. I think one of the great things about Britain is that it's a hugely successful, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-racial society. That's a really good thing. And one of the ways in which we've built that success is that in the past we've been able to control migration, so it's in the benefits of everyone. I'd like to see migration continue in the future, but I'd like to see it controlled. And the only way that we can control migration, indeed the only way that we can be truly fair to everyone who wants to come here, is to leave the European Union. I think it's wrong that any one of the 450 million citizens of the European Union can be at the front of the queue and can come here automatically when there are people from countries with which we have deep ties, like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the nations of the Caribbean, who can't come here in the same way. I think that is discriminatory, and I think by leaving the European Union, we can actually have a truly inclusive, non-racist immigration policy which works in the interests of everyone in this country.
Want to come back on that one, Sam?
It's sort of confusing as a voter because you're saying what you just said, but then you have people like Nigel Farage coming out yesterday saying that, you know, he doesn't like how society's changing and how society's looking very different. And comments like that surely ostracise people. So do you stand by what he said?
I can't agree with that. I think we're really lucky to live in one of the most amazing cities here in London in the world, and I think that we're uniquely fortunate to live in the best country in the world. And it's because I think this country is so great, and because I believe its people are so wonderful, that I want them to control who comes here and the numbers who come here. I trust them to be generous, wise, humane and right. At the moment, control of our immigration policy isn't in the hands of the British people. I think that we should take back control so that people like you and others can debate and decide how many people can come here so that we can attract people here who can strengthen our economy and, yes, provide a safe haven and refuge to people fleeing persecution. That is the British way, and the only way we can ensure we have that policy is if we vote to leave the European Union and take back control.
Let's bring in Andrew Carnegie, should we? Andrew runs his own small business. He's making parts for intensive care units. Andrew, what's your question, please?
Mr Gove, in general elections, parties present detailed manifestos on how they propose to manage the economy if elected. Why hasn't the Leave campaign presented a detailed economic plan?
Well, Andrew, first of all, thank you for the work you do, and I think it's hugely to your credit that you're committed to producing products that will improve the lives of people in pain and suffering. But more than that, we have outlined in significant detail things that could change as a result of leaving the European Union. One of the things that I've explained is that we would be able to take away VAT on fuel if we left the European Union. One of the problems about being in the EU is that you can't, once VAT has been slapped on a product, take it down to zero. That means that everyone, the poorest, pensioners, pays 5% VAT on fuel to heat and light their own home. I've said if we leave the European Union, we can take that VAT off, and that means the very poorest in our society can be better off. I've also outlined that if we leave the European Union, then we can invest additional millions in our National Health Service. And it's also the case that those of us in Vote Leave have outlined that if we leave the European Union, we can tackle the rogue European Court of Justice, which not only imposes laws that mean that multinationals can dodge taxes here, but is also responsible for weakening our border controls so that we cannot keep out criminals and we cannot kick out terrorists. There have been detailed proposals that have been put forward about how our life could be better, but the ultimate question is, whatever view you take of our future, whether or not you think it's right to have VAT on this product or to lower taxes on another product, you can only have those decisions enforced by people who are accountable to you if you vote to leave the European Union so that we can take back control.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, we were chatting earlier on, and Andrew's point is he wants the Leave campaign to tell him when you're planning to publish your economic plan. Do you have a date for that?
We've already published details of our economic plan and we'll be saying more in the course of next week. But a critical thing about this is that the Leave campaign is not an alternative government. The Leave campaign are a group of people who believe that the government that we elected a year ago should take this country out of the European Union. The point of a general election is to choose the government, and the point of a referendum is to give that government instructions. So when you vote to leave, what you'll be doing is sending a clear instruction to this government that you want them to take back control of VAT and you want them to take back control of health policy and take back control of our borders.
OK, so, Andrew, did you miss the economic plan or did you not read it? Or?
Well, I think the answer is there is no economic plan. I've got 2 points, if it's OK to make those. The first one is that it appears to me that you're asking people to vote for a divorce and sort the financial settlement out afterwards. And that makes no sense to me. You know, there's lots of people who go through divorces, and the last thing they want to do is try and sort the money out afterwards. You negotiate before. And without having a plan in place and having put the effort into that plan, it makes no sense to me. And with all due respect, Mr Gove, it appears to me that it's almost like a First World War general. You're waving the flag, you're saying over the top men, but you have no idea what's on the front line or what the casualty rate will be in the conflict that's to come.
Well, it's certainly an arresting image, the First World War image. But ultimately, what I'm putting my faith in is the ingenuity, the creativity and the strength of the British people. Many of those who are arguing that we should remain are trying to frighten you by saying that it would be impossible for Britain to succeed. They're saying that Britain is too small, too poor, and we're all too stupid to be able to succeed on the outside. I comprehensively reject that. I think that we would be economically stronger, capable of forging trade deals with other countries. It's a fact that the European Union is a declining share of the world's economy. It's a fact that the European Union is growing slower than every continent in the world, apart from Antarctica. It's a fact that if we vote to leave and we take back control, then we can shape an economic policy which is in our interests. Britain's been strong in the past and can be strong in the future if we work as an independent, self-governing democracy. It works for America, for Canada, for Australia and New Zealand. It can work for us again if only we liberate the talents of the British people.
OK. Let's bring in Jimmy Oliwolu, should we? And Jimmy is a third-year engineering student, Cambridge University. Good for you, Jimmy. What's your question?
Good evening, Mr Gove. You won your campaign in the Scottish independence referendum, ensuring that Scots continue to have some of their laws set by Westminster. Why can't you accept that some of our laws should be made by a democratically elected body in Europe for the collective good of all countries?
Well, as you know, I was born and brought up in Scotland. I consider myself to be Scottish and British at the same time, and I'm proud of our United Kingdom, its history and its traditions. And one of those traditions is that there is, every 4 or 5 years, an election in which you can decide who the government is. And everyone here knows that our Prime Minister is David Cameron. Some of you voted for him, some of you voted against him. But how many people here know who the 5 presidents are who run Europe? 5 presidents. Can anyone here name all 5 of them? I don't think you can. I don't think anyone in the street can. Harriet Harman couldn't. The truth is that the European Union is not a democracy. The European Union is run by people in the Commission and in the Court whom none of us ever elected, whom scarcely any of us can name, and who none of us can sack. The most powerful symbol in our democracy is not Parliament, it's the removal van that arrives every 5 or 10 years outside Downing Street and says, the British people, Prime Minister, have told you you're fired. We cannot do that. None of us can fire the President of the European Commission or the President of the European Court or the President of the European Central Bank. And I think that is wrong. One of the reasons that I went into politics is that I believe I should be accountable for my decisions. But as long as I'm a member, or this country is a member of the European Union, there are all sorts of decisions that are taken at a European level that I can't alter. That's undemocratic, unaccountable, wrong. It needs to change, and it will, if we vote leave on the 23rd of June and take back control of our democracy.
Lady here at the front. Just wait for the microphone, madam, if you would.
Good evening, Mr Gove. Mr Cameron offered this referendum to keep the Tory party together last year and to buy off UKIP. He won an election he didn't expect to win, and which is now being examined for election fraud. If some of those seats are found to have been wrongly won, not won at all, that would mean this referendum is being held on a totally false premise. It would be illegal. What happens then if we end up out and we find that some of those seats were fraudulently won?
Well, I don't know the details of these allegations, and they're being investigated. And as Faisal pointed out, as Lord High Chancellor, one of the things that I mustn't do is comment on legal proceedings. But there's a broader point here. The Prime Minister said that it's been more than 40 years since people have had a chance to decide whether or not we should be members of the European Union. And he's giving all of us a chance to vote on this question. I think it was brave and right of him, once he had that majority, to honour that promise. Nobody can say that he's doing anything other than sticking to his word and being true about what he believes. On that basis, I think it's up to all of us to decide what we think is the right thing to do. This is an historic moment, and it's a moment when, actually, whatever you think of Conservative politicians, the real power rests with the people. The real power rests with all of you. And I think that is a humbling, but also a wonderful moment.
OK.
Because you will decide.
OK. You're slightly getting off answering the question there, so let's try again with Jason Hislop, should we? Hello, Jason.
Yeah, Mr Gove. I find the Scottish independence referendum to be really nasty and divisive. So if the rest of the UK votes to leave the EU, but the majority of people in Scotland remain, is another Scottish referendum inevitable and the break-up of the Union?
No, I don't think it is. A majority of people in Scotland are against a second referendum, and a majority of people in Scotland are against independence. And I don't think if the people of the United Kingdom vote to leave one union, that the people of Scotland will vote to leave another. And I also think that if we vote to leave, it will be a vote of confidence in all of us, the United Kingdom, together. The Scottish referendum, you're right, had its tough and difficult times, but it was also an exercise in democracy. And the majority said, we believe that the United Kingdom should survive. Whatever the result of this referendum, it will be democracy in action. And I think this is an opportunity not just for us to have democracy in action, it is an opportunity for us to strengthen and to reinvigorate our democracy, because our democratic traditions in Scotland, Wales, England and Northern Ireland are what have enabled us to be a beacon globally, setting an example, being a force for good, and making sure that we are a great place for everyone to live.
Let's move away from referenda, should we, and bring in Lynn Chandler here on the front row. Lynn is a part-time historian. She owns an apartment in France. Hello to you, Lynn. Thank you for joining us. What's your question?
Thank you. Good evening. As Kay says, I own a small retirement apartment in France. So my question is, what will be the consequences of a leave vote for the hundreds of thousands of Brits across Europe who own homes?
Whereabouts in France is your apartment?
South of France.
In the south of France.
West Coast.
Yes. No, I've got friends who live in France as well, and one of the things is that many of them are people, or they have homes in France. Many of them are voting in favour of Britain leaving the European Union because they think it's in Britain's interest, and they also know that there are international laws and international rules that mean that if you're legally and ordinarily resident in another country, then even if your home country votes to leave the European Union, all your rights, all your privileges are carried on and are respected. So the one thing I would say to you, and indeed to everyone, who enjoys living and who enjoys the prospect of retirement, which I suspect is many years hence, enjoys thinking about retirement, the one thing is that your investment will be safe and your future will be safe, whatever the decision on June the 23rd.
And someone like, someone like the French government would respect those laws.
They would have to respect those laws.
I mean, someone like the Spanish PM this week has said something completely different about a negative impact on British citizens, which seems wholly unfair.
I agree that there are one or two foreign politicians who have tried to play the fear card in this debate, but it's perfectly clear the legal basis is that if you're ordinarily resident and you've got the legal right and title to a property in another European Union country, then that will be respected and you can enjoy your retirement there, and I hope have the opportunity to come back and see your children in this country and they can enjoy sharing a holiday with you.
OK, so you're absolutely 100% sure that if we choose to leave the European Union, that France, Portugal, Germany, Spain, the rest would totally abide by supporting people like Lynn and the 118,000 other Brits who are living overseas?
Absolutely. I think people will, across the European Union, respect international law. Of course they will. And I think a critical point here is that we and European Union nations, if we vote to leave, instead of having a fractious relationship, which, let's be honest, we do have at the moment, we can then move to being friendly neighbours. And I think far better than being a difficult lodger in a house that we didn't design is being a great neighbour in a home that we can call our own. And for that reason, I think we will actually have better relations with other European nations if we, instead of trying to prevent them doing what they want to do with their future, say, your destiny is in your hands, our destiny is in our hands, we've taken back control.
Gentleman here in the blue shirt. Hold on a second, sir. Here we go. Go.
Spain has threatened to close the border with Gibraltar. What would you do?
I don't think that...
If they do, what are you going to do?
I think as soon as the votes are in on June the 23rd and June the 24th, if we voted to leave, then we're in a different world as far as relations with these countries are, and I think that they will recognise our democratic vote. I don't think it's the case that Spain, having fought so hard to establish democracy, is now going to show disdain for democracy and for the people of Gibraltar. And one of the things about the position of people in any country where the British flag flies is that they know that their interests are best protected by a strong and confident and independent Britain. So for that reason, I think that the day afterwards we'll find that some of those politicians and others who've been warning us and perhaps feeding Project Fear will respect a democratic vote in the home of democracy. OK, let's bring in Geoffrey Wellington. Hello to you, Geoffrey. Geoffrey is worried about his family's future. He works at Port Talbot. I think you can probably guess what he does. Geoffrey?
Hiya, Michael. I've been an electrician at Port Talbot Steelworks for 26 years. And the feeling there is that they're going to decide our future after the EU referendum. How should I vote to protect my job? And that's on behalf of everybody who works in the steelworks in Great Britain.
Well, my heart goes out to you and all your colleagues in the Tata Steelworks in Port Talbot. I know that it's central to a great community and that the people who work there have been doing a fantastic job against the odds, and it's terrible that your fate hangs in the balance. But if we vote to leave the European Union, one of the things that we can do is to provide support for industries that are going through difficult times through no fault of the individuals working in them. At the moment, inside the European Union, there are specific rules that prevent us providing that emergency support and assistance in the way that we might want to. So one of the things that I would say is, of course, there are many, many issues to weigh up. But if we vote to leave the European Union, one of the things that we can do is that we will have additional flexibility to help those industries that really need it when that difficult day comes and people like you and your colleagues are facing problems that are none of your own doing.
Thank you.
Just to clarify that, would Tata Steel be saved if we were outside the European Union?
I think we would be, if we were outside the European Union and had been outside the European Union, we would be able to support industries that were going through difficult times. Now, it may be the case that...
So you would offer state aid to support Tata Steel?
We could in certain circumstances.
As a Conservative?
Well, one of the things I think of as a Conservative is that it's really important to recognise that the free market is not a god. It's really important that we try to do everything possible to make industries competitive, absolutely. But there will be difficult times when industries go through strains and difficult periods, when the government can and should step in. Not on every occasion, not at every time, but from time to time. And that's what being a democracy is about.
Okay.
If we vote to leave, we can take back control of the support that we give to industries. And if we feel that it's right at a given time, then we can do that.
Thank you, Mr Gove. Let's bring in Todd Cooper, should we? Todd is a student at the University of Birmingham. Hello to you, Todd. What's your question?
Hello. I'm a medical science student and I also volunteer in my local hospital. So I think, like everyone, I'm worried about the NHS. Up to 80% of trust leaders have said that they're worried about staffing should we leave the EU. So wouldn't a vote in leave to the EU cause a staffing crisis in the NHS?
I absolutely don't think so. Everyone who's currently working in the NHS, whether they've come from EU countries, come from abroad, or were born and brought up here, their jobs will be protected. Indeed, their lives should be easier. At the moment, the NHS faces two big problems. It faces growing demand because we've got an ageing population. Well, that's a good thing, and we shouldn't want to do anything about it. But it also faces increasing demand because we have uncontrolled free movement from the European Union here. And that has meant additional pressure on accident and emergency and additional pressure on GPs as well. And one of the concerns that I have is that the European Union has a plan to allow 5 new nations with 88 million people, Albania, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia and Turkey, into the European Union. If that happens, then inevitably the fact that our NHS, which is unique in Europe because it's free at the point of delivery, wonderfully so, will come under additional strain. So I think that our NHS will be stronger if we leave the European Union and then invest some of the money that we can get back from Brussels in making sure that those who really need it get the superb care which the NHS offers.
OK, let's bring in Anne Dakin, should we? Anne is a single parent and she wants to be able to help her 27-year-old son. Anne, what's your question?
Hello, Mr Gove.
Just here, over here.
Oh, sorry.
Hi. I'm worried about my son. I brought him up alone, so all of my money, I wasn't a benefit, I worked. I was lucky enough to work all the time. All of my money's gone on bringing him up. I can't help him moving forward. He's 27 years old, he's living at home with me. I love him, but I want him to leave and stand on his own 2 feet.
Know the feeling.
He works for himself, he's a self-employed builder.
What's your question?
How can leaving the EU help him to buy his own home?
OK. Well, the first thing I want to say is single parents do a fantastic job.
Answer the question,
fact that you've raised your child on your own in that way is inspirational. But if we leave the European Union, one of the things that will be easier for him to do is to find a job and find a home of his own. It's not just the National Health Service that suffers as a result of uncontrolled free movement. Uncontrolled free movement has also driven wages
just to clarify,
down.
We're slightly running out of time. I'm going to have to cut you to the quick now. House price is going to go up or down as a result of us if we leave the EU?
I think that if we leave the European Union, it will be easier for young people to get on the housing ladder. You can't say... It will depend on individual parts of the country. It will depend on individual parts of the country. But the critical thing is that there will be less pressure on housing overall. One of the problems that we have at the moment is there is a lack of supply of housing. And that's put house prices up
that's because
for those at the bottom of the market.
During the Conservative government.
Sorry?
Third viewer has been built during the Conservative government.
Well, as it happens, house building under the Conservative government has been higher than under the last government. Put that to one side. Not enough houses have been built overall. And one of the concerns that I have is that, unfortunately, as a direct result of uncontrolled free movement into this country, it is more difficult for young people, including your son, to get onto the housing ladder.
OK, slightly running out of time. Steve Bradshaw? Steve, what's your question?
Mr Gove, you and Boris have led the Leave campaign. When Mr Cameron steps down in the future, are you considering a leadership bid?
Oh, there we go. There's the leadership question.
Steve, I can tell you I'm absolutely not. The one thing I can tell you is that there are lots of talented people who could be Prime Minister after David Cameron, but count me out.
You're seen as the poster boy for the Conservative backbenchers, the Brexiteers.
Well, I'll tell you...
There's a lot of votes on those back benches, Mr Gove.
I'll tell you this. The one thing I would recommend is whatever posters you put up on your wall, do put one of me. I'm not the sort of person that you want to have when you wake up on your bedroom wall. I'll tell you that. No, the truth is that, of course, people want to speculate about personalities, but this issue is far more important than that. This issue is about the future of our country and what sort of nation we want to be. And I think that instead of succumbing to the pessimism of the Remain side, we should be optimistic and hopeful about our potential. And I think that whoever leads this country in the future, they will have more freedom to do what's right if we've left the European Union, and then they have control of all of the levers that can supercharge our country and make it the best country in the world in every regard.
You have accused Mr Cameron of telling ghost stories to children in the past, with all the negative spin.
OK.
Are you promising the world?
OK, I think we are sadly running out of time, but thank you very much indeed, all of you, for your questions. That's our last question tonight, Mr Gove.
Oh, well, thank you, Kay. And can I just say thank you to all of the audience? This debate is so important. It really matters to all of us what we decide. And I think, instead of the pessimism of the Remain campaign, we have an opportunity to think of the next generation. If we have faith in their talent, in their generosity, in their hard work, we can, if we leave the European Union, ensure the next generation make this country once more truly great.
Thank you very much. Well, we've heard Mr Gove lay out his case for the UK to leave the European Union. He spoke of what he called the invincible arrogance of Europe to leave and asked people not to trust politicians, but to trust themselves.
It's been an electrifying 2 nights of interview and debate. Don't forget, we'll be live across the UK on the big night of the 23rd of June, and we're going to be here with all the fallout after the UK makes its big decision. Coming next, Adam Bolton with reaction and analysis on tonight's events.